Hi, I'm Judith Dreyer. Thank you for joining me for this podcast series, The Holistic Nature of Us. I invite you to join with me into a better understanding of the concepts behind our holistic nature and how that ties us directly to the natural world around us. My intention is to be your guide for this half hour as we begin seeing our world with fresh eyes, gaining more understanding and learning how we can connect the dots in practical ways that we are nature and nature's in us. I feature a broad range of guests deeply concerned about the environmental issues of our time and more, authors and educators, practitioners and others whose passion for this earth and for all species help us create sustainable bridges of understanding. These folks are innovators, action-oriented, creating solutions in a variety of ways that honor us and the planet's holistic nature. I am honored to share their stories, their projects, and their passion with all of you. And today, I'm delighted to introduce you again to Sara Banta. Sara is a health coach and a busy mother of three who are now 12, 14, and 16 years old. Through her journey, she's had to solve many health issues within her family, including her son suffering from leukemia at the age of 9, her daughter having allergies, anemia, and asthma, and her husband having heart issues, her other daughter having comprehension and learning issues in addition to headaches. This, of course, is on top of her own issues with fertility, hormones, adult acne, IBS, digestive issues, heavy metals, and more. She has had to connect the dots and realize what was causing all of these issues and what the solutions were, which also, of course, involve the mind-body connection. With that, she has devoted her life to providing guidance and all natural health supplements and solutions that heal the body and the problems, not just addressing the symptoms for her clients. Welcome, Sara. It's a delight to have you back again.
Oh, Judith, thank you so much for having me back. I felt like we didn't have enough time last time, so this is great.
It is great because we touched upon something that's very important to both of us, and that is the world of EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, and how our technology is affecting us with these wavelengths, and what can we do to protect ourselves from these wavelengths. So how about if you begin at the beginning. Tell us how you got involved or interested in this topic and what can we do about it.
You know, I really didn't. I was like everybody else, and I still am. I'm not good about it. I have my phone with me all the time. I do a lot of my work on my phone. It's like an extension of my arm. But if I have it too long, I literally feel my blood boiling and shaking in my arm because of the EMFs and the energy coming out of it. And as you did your introduction, I'm thinking, gosh, we are getting so far away from nature and where we're meant to be. But we think all this technology is doing us so much good and connecting us and making things more efficient. And all of those facts have been proven to be untrue. I mean, you look at the kids with their cell phones and social media, they've become less productive and more scattered. They're not more efficient. They're not more productive. And same with adults and trying to multitask and all of that. So as we think we're getting better and more efficient and the world is going in the right direction, it's actually the opposite of that. And then you look at the government, the EPA confirms, quote unquote, small amounts of radiation over a long time raises your risk of cancer. It can also cause mutations in your genes. That is their quote. So here they are pushing for 5G, but quote unquote will say, we are not waiting for the studies to come out. We want to be the first in the world to have 5G. So you've got two, controversial and contradicting statements out of the same government. So what does that mean? EMFs are electromagnetic fields created, and it disrupts the DNA in our body. On the electromagnetic spectrum, there's non-ionizing radiation or low energy radiation, which falls below the visible light spectrum. And ionizing radiation is high energy radiation, lies above it. So non-ionizing radiation is from waves generated by power lines, radio, television, radar, cell phones, smart meters, Wi-Fi, microwaves, infrared. Ionizing radiation is from waves generated by commercial flights, X-rays, ultraviolet rays, nuclear medicines, weapons, power plants, that sort of thing. And I don't know if you just heard me say commercial flights, but one fact that really hit me in my research, as you mentioned, my son had leukemia at the age of 9, is the rate of leukemia for a fetus in a pregnant woman during the first trimester increases by 16 times from one commercial flight.
Wow.
And I then, when I read that, I'm like looking back at my pregnancy with my son, and I flew. I know I flew. And now I think there were other factors that were part of his situation, like his reaction to vaccinations. But, as a mom, I have to sit there and think, well, maybe that was part of the issue. But as we go along, there was a study just on the 3G, not the 4G or the 5G. But after 3 years, it has a weakening effect on the whole biological system. It disrupts the autonomic nervous system, the digestive system, the vagus nerve, the immune system. It affects our mental state. And this is a slow progression. So people can't say, oh, I know this is because of my Wi-Fi. This is because of my cell phone. The rates of depression, I know you've seen it, have skyrocketed. It's now 40 million people are depressed, and 10 million people are acutely depressed. And many are on antidepressants. I mean, all of my kids' friends, there's a lot of them who have anxiety or depression, and the suicide rate in the schools has skyrocketed. But what this is also doing to the rest of us, it's downgrading our minds. We are not able to think as well. We're just kind of in a fog. And what's ironic, as we look to the 5G and trying to be the world power in this technology race, is our quality of life and the workforce from the 5G is going to be dumbed down. So how is it going to produce more productivity in the country if the workforce is dumber than it was in prior years? Does that make sense?
Well, it does, and I think what's happening is we're getting some science to back these statements up, and that's unfortunately what some of our legislators don't really make the time to listen to. Who says we have to be the country to dumb down first? That's basically what the problem is. And as you and I spoke about, it seems like in our country, in particular, from the research I've done, is that we find something that's really cool and really great, but we never look at the long-term consequences. And that's the point of this podcast, is to remind people that what are we doing today, and how is it going to affect the next 7 generations?
Right. And so right now, the country is planning on putting 5G towers in 11 cities, major cities this year. And by 2020, it will be in every major city. And then just in California, they're planning on putting 50,000 towers this year. And what people don't understand is that because 5G has a shorter wavelength, they need to be every 500 feet. So if you look at an old cell phone, it has one antenna. It's like having one antenna. The new phones, and with 5G, it's going to be having like 100 antennas, and then those antennas are going off to all of these towers, and you're in the crossfire. And it's just disrupting your DNA, and it's scrambling you, and your body it's not in its natural state. And what that also is doing, as you see, there's 50% as of now, and we're not even into the 5G yet, 50% of the adult population has at least one chronic debilitating disease, and 20% of the kids. And then if you include obesity, that's 50% in the kids. So there's a serious breakdown of our health. And with the brain fog and the broken brain syndrome, as some people call it, you see an increase in Alzheimer's and dementia, autoimmune disorders, diabetes, heart disease. Also, I already mentioned Alzheimer's. One interesting fact is that when a kid or an adult who has diabetes goes into a high EMF zone without eating, their blood sugar goes up. So it's affecting blood sugar without anything else. And I don't know about you, but I have some of my healthy, quote unquote, lucky friends are all of a sudden complaining about issues with their health when they were the ones that were never going to have issues. And it's just, it's everywhere. The other thing is as I was talking about the 5G towers, you can say, oh, well, I'll just stay off my cell phone. Well, that's not going to save you because you're still in the crossfires of the wireless EMFs going through you and in the air around you everywhere. And then other people say, well, I'll just go to a rural area in the United States. And that's not really going to help because remember when we used to have the old cell phones and it would go on roaming?
Right.
Okay, right. So when you're in a low populated area, that's what's going to be happening. So it's really, you can't escape it. So what I have done is with this, when you ask me how did I get into it, I actually backed into it because I found solutions for radiation. And I thought, oh, well, why do I need these solutions? Because I didn't really think that it was a big deal. But then I started doing the research, and we can talk about the solutions as well if you'd like. But one thing what happens in the body, too, is 96% of the United States is low in iodine. When you are low in iodine, if you look at the periodic table, it's in the same family as fluoride, bromine, and chloride. Those three things are toxins that are in, not from 5G, but essentially from the chemtrails and the other toxins and pollutions in our area. And when you are low in iodine, those toxins go into your cells and clog those receptor sites that are meant for iodine. And that also includes radioactive iodine. So when you talk about the nuclear explosions like Fukushima and the chemtrails above you, which carry the diethyl bromine, these things are going into the body, which if you were full of iodine, you would be protected for the most part because they have no place to go. Whereas if you're not, they will go and clog those receptor sites and dumb your system down, cause the autoimmune diseases and all the other chronic diseases.
That's it. Very interesting statistics. So let's go into what can we do to help ourselves with this kind of technology coming in, besides contacting our legislators, because I think that's a point I like to make. Sign petitions, contact your legislators, let them know that we're not happy about it. Why do we need this? I could care less going to a grocery store, contacting my refrigerator. I mean, I don't need to do that. It's exciting from a technological standpoint. It's like the Disney World Futurama is here. But the question I have is, do we really need that? Do we really need that for future generations? That's still the same question.
From where we've gone to where we are now, it shows us that we don't need it because we are not becoming any more efficient with our time. We're becoming more distracted, more ADD. I mean, even people that are not ADD are acting ADD because they've got one cell phone and a computer, and I need to text this back and check my Instagram and check my Facebook and oh, by the way, I'm trying to focus on work.
Right.
So your brain is scattered, and then it actually becomes, you burn out your adrenals, you're in this fight or flight state all the time, and that's a whole nother topic we could go into at a later date, where it's just scrambling your whole body on that sense, away from the technology and the EMFs. But the number one step would be to take an iodine. 52 million people have hyper or hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's. And like I said, if you are low in iodine, all those other toxins and radioactive iodine are going to cause issue in your body. So iodine is the number one predictor of depression. And then when we get to, in Chinese medicine, you've got your qi, your jing, and your shen. And your qi is your life force. Well, iodine activates your mitochondria, which is your life force, which is your qi. So as you are supplementing with iodine, you're getting more life force. And with your jing is your deep primal force, which is dependent on having enough iodine. And your shen is your brain function. And iodine clears the brain. And this is very interesting. With the way our world is set up, and all the amount of fluoride and bromine and chloride in our waters and everything else we're talking about, fluoride calcifies the pineal gland. The pineal gland is your sixth chakra, and it controls the flow of energy throughout your whole body. So by activating the pineal, it connects us to the energies in the universe. And so if it's calcified, we're essentially dumbed down, like we talked about. As you take the proper iodine, because there are iodines out there that are toxic, you need to make sure you have the proper iodine. By taking the proper iodine, which I have something called acceleradine, which is actually detoxes the body from radiation in addition to supplying the proper amount of iodine. And it will start kicking out the fluoride and decalcifying the pineal gland and putting the proper amounts of iodine in your pineal gland. Then what happens? Essentially, you become more enlightened. You're not dumbed down. The brain fog lifts, and you are able to connect the flow of energy throughout your whole body. My acceleradine is literally a scalar wave enlightenment. It's the single most important mineral that we have for spiritual life. And so it's not just about the thyroid needing iodine. It's about all of the chakras needing to connect and work together. With people always think, if I'm deficient in iodine, it's only going to affect my thyroid. Well, actually, there's 4 times the amount of iodine receptors in breast tissue than the thyroid. So women with low thyroid or low iodine are going to have 3 times more breast cancer and fibrocystic breasts. So it's really fundamental for the breast tissue, for the ovaries, and then also it gets into the heart and the skin. So it's very important for the whole body. And like I said, as we are taking in the iodine, it is going to slowly kick out the other toxic radioactive iodines and the other halogens, the fluoride, the bromine, and the chloride.
That's
iodine,
interesting, because iodine, there is a high incidence of hypo or hyperthyroidism, and it's almost like if you're over 40, you might have one of them,
Yep, most people think they do, and then what the doctors do is they put them on something that helps stimulate or gives them TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone. What people don't understand is the way the metabolism and thyroid work. There's many more steps than that. So essentially, the TSH is released from the pituitary to the thyroid. That tells the thyroid to stimulate the thyroid hormone. And then that's supposed to produce T4. Well, 4 stands for 4 molecules of iodine. And then T4 is supposed to convert into T3, 3 molecules of iodine, which a lot of that happens in the liver. So we haven't even talked about the fact that we need to detox our liver. And then the T3 turns into energy with ATP. So when the doctor gives you his medication, the Synthroid, that's only working on the TSH. That's not addressing any of the other issues that could be happening in the thyroid health. So what the iodine does is it provides the proper nutrients for everything to work properly. Now, I have other supplements to help nurture the thyroid as well if someone really needs more help than just the iodine. But most people are deficient in iodine, and that's a first step, because not only are you going to help your thyroid health, but you're also going to start detoxing from this radiation and cleaning out your brain, your pineal gland, and all the other tissues in your body. And the difference between acceleridine and other iodines. Acceleridine is charged with true scalar energy, and this means it's treated with the most balanced and highest frequency, and it heals at the deepest levels. So this is helping with the radiation exposure. Most iodines are diatomic, which means that they are molecules that require the body to break them down. They're two molecules together, which is especially hard if you already have a weak immune system. So you're making your immune system work harder. This is a single atom of iodine with 100% bioavailability. When I switched to this iodine from another iodine that I had been on for 10 years, day one, my eyes were bright, and I thought, oh my gosh, I just got a boost of energy, and I felt it. And you do need to go slow, because what it's doing, because it's so strong, it's starting to kick out those toxins. So some people might have a reaction to having, a detox reaction, which I have a remedy for that as well in my accelerated cellular detox powder, which soaks up all those toxins and takes it out of your body quickly. But then what else, this is the really exciting one, is on top of the iodine. So the iodine, just to finish up, is radiation free. Most iodines, like from seaweed or other iodines, come from sources that are heavily radio contaminated due to Fukushima. So here you are taking iodine to combat radiation, and they're full of radiation. So you really need to be careful with which iodine you are taking. So the second step is my Nuke No More. Now, people think there's nothing that can zero out radiation in your body. This supplement is the only supplement that has ever been proven to zero out radiation in the body. And what it is it is a formula that is scalar enhanced. It's hyper extreme oxygenated saturated spring water. So essentially there's oxygen in the water, in layman's terms. And it has tissue regeneration and healing frequencies. And it has antidotal frequencies for nuclear fallout, for the smog of hundreds of radioactive isotopes, general radiation from ionizing X-ray and commercial flying, nuclear power plants, and the 5G. So this is what we're talking about. And it has the antidotal frequencies for the non-ionizing smart meters, cell phones, electropollution, etc. So what it has been shown to do, in a study of 32 random test subjects who were extremely radio contaminated, they all zeroed out with Nuke No More, except for one person, they all zeroed out. But then what was amazing, after just taking one bottle of it, they stayed zeroed out for over 2 years, every single one of them except for one. And that person was zeroed out with one more bottle. So essentially, you take one bottle, you zero out your radiation, you take the iodine to then further protect you as your cells are being filled with the iodine and kicking out and blocking out the other radioactivity that's trying to get into your body, and you're protected. It's pretty phenomenal. Go ahead.
Well, those are two great tips for helping us mitigate the radiation we're exposed to from all these devices, correct? I just want to
Yes.
summarize that. Okay,
Yes.
so we have how they work and what their overall effect is, and we know that there's horrible contamination for the folks with Fukushima in particular. So to have products that zero out the radiation, and as a nurse or a retired nurse, I worked in the field of oncology, and I know that oftentimes to bring in healing, we're exposed to even more radiation. And radiation through X-rays is meant to kill. It's meant to kill those cells so that hopefully we can do better. But
Right.
we don't address in the medical profession the contamination from those kinds of practices.
Yeah, I remember my friend went through chemo and she thought she was all good and ready to go, and she just went out for a jog and her ankle gave out and it literally shattered because the chemo had destroyed her bone density. And so there's all these after effects that they don't really help you with. And there's the chemo brain, they call it, because you feel dumbed down and memory loss and all the results from going through that type of treatment. It's awful.
Right. Okay, so can you give us a couple more tips that the listeners can, apply in their life today to help reduce the effects of the EMF frequencies, and especially if we're in the big city? If any of my listeners are in the big cities that already have 5G, I think there's a couple towers in New York City, and there's also towers, I believe, in Boston. I'm on the East Coast, so what else could my listeners do today?
Well, like you were saying, you need to write your political representatives. Number one, grounding is a great thing, but if you're in a big city, that's hard to do. And grounding means go walk on a beach and get the positive ions. I mentioned the cellular detox powder that soaks up all the toxins out of your body and takes them out. A natural way to detox the body is through intermittent fasting and a low carb diet. That really helps with your insulin resistance. And when your body is more insulin sensitive, it's much better at healing itself through apoptosis or autophagy, which is your natural way of your bodies to kill off the bad cells and clean them up, and help with regenerating the good cells in the body and the healing cells. The other thing is either through my ancient salt regimen, which you put a couple tablespoons of that salt in a bath with sea salt, and that helps you detox from all your organs. It's through your skin. 70 to 90% of toxins can exit, and that helps unload the burden off of the kidneys and the liver and the colon and the lymph and the lungs. So that's another way. And the ancient salt that I have is negatively charged, which pulls out the toxins like parasites and undigested fats and the other stuff you're kicking off through the detox that you're doing with the Nuke No More and the iodine. It pulls things through your skin, and that really is, you have to think about our ancestors' livers and kidneys did not get bombarded with all of these toxins, so they weren't meant to filter out all of this. And so this is a way that you can get some of those toxins out and give your liver and kidneys a little, a little break. And then we had talked about putting protectors on your phones and your computers and that sort of thing. And that's a good way to start. There's a lot of junk out there. I also know there's some meters out there that you can test. You can bring into your room and test the load of EMFs. I, at this time, don't have the name of the good ones, but that is something to do some research on as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great, Sarah. You gave us several tips today to help us with this very serious issue that we are facing today in our technology world. And I think any kind of practical tip helps us get a handle on it to some extent. So you've given us products, and you've also given us things like grounding, intermittent fasting, walking out in nature whenever you can. I know some companies, even in the cities, they're adding fountains and more naturescapes to their campuses. So those are good things that can help, as well as something as simple as taking a bath with salts in it that can help us relieve toxins too. And there's a variety of products for that aspect as well. Is there anything else you'd like to add? I would love you to give us your contact information again, and then anything else you'd like to add before we sign off.
Yes, I mentioned intermittent fasting and a low-carb diet, and if anyone's interested in what that means, I have a ton of information on my website, which is acceleratedhealthproducts.com, and that's ACCELERATED. And I also have on my YouTube channel a lot of description and how to do it, and how to make it easier, because it's not easy in the beginning if you just do it cold turkey. And if anyone has any questions about anything we've talked about, feel free to contact me and my email address through the website, or Sara at acceleratedhealthproducts.com. And that's about it. But I'm here to help, and I really would love to spread the word. And, my passion is to help people feel better, and it's not your fault. That's the one thing I want to tell people, is that everyone thinks it's their fault that they're not feeling great, that their brain's not working. We just need to know ways to combat it and to be actionable with it.
I agree, and that's a great way to end. But we do have a responsibility too. If we know something, knowledge is power, and we can act on that in some fashion. So I want to thank you for all your many suggestions, your level of expertise, and I know I'm inspired by it. I'm going to look for a case for my new phone and take the next steps. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Judith, so much. This has been great.
All right. So this is Judith Dreyer. I'm the author of At the Garden's Gate book and blog. My book is available through my website, which is www.judithdreyer.com, as well as several distribution arms, such as Amazon, Nook, Goodreads, and more. I'd like to remind all of you that a transcript is available for each podcast. Please like and share them. Let's support each other and get the word out. And remember, now is the time for practical action and profound interchange, so we value our world again. Enjoy your day.